So we are thrilled.
First of all, how are you all? How's everybody doing? Great. How is everybody doing? All right, now we can go.
Now we can go, very good. And it's after lunch, so nice call on that one. And it's been, a little bit of the delay was pretty awesome because I had a chance to talk to Robert and to Michael and to learn more about them. And certainly we know Michael and Robert. Michael from his journey as an Army Ranger, combat wounded veteran, who has now devoted his time and mission to continue to give back and serve others through the Robert Irvine Foundation. And then Chef Robert Irvine, I've been a big fan for a long, long time. You okay with the noise, or what is it, feedback?
What's that noise?
No. Oh. That's my secret weapon right there. Busted.
I'm sorry you're so hot.
Hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to get him back for that one. We already said we're going to go to the bar this evening, so I can't wait. So with that, we're incredibly excited to have celebrity chef Robert Irvine. His journey as a cook in the Royal Navy as a teenager to his status as a restaurateur, television celebrity, and philanthropist is truly motivating. He gives back to our military and first responders through the nonprofit Robert Irvine Foundation. And with him here today, again, is former Army Ranger Michael Schlitz. Please give them a round of applause. So a lot of people said, how did you get, Robert Irvine to come out to Riverside and be a part of CTEX? And most people that know me know that I'll just reach out and call, and reach out and try to connect with somebody. And so Chef Irvine was gracious enough to kind of listen to what we had in mind and why we were doing it. And he immediately got back to us, which I thought was kind of told you the type of humility he has and the reverence he has for first responders and our military veterans and current folks serving in the military. So I can't thank you enough for being here today. Thank you so much.
It's important. It's important that we let the world know, and I mean the world, because we have that platform, exactly what our first responders, firefighters, police officers, EMTs, doctors, nurses, teachers, because I put all those people in that one box alongside our men and women who wear the cloth of our nation and our veterans.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And I do have some questions for Chef Irvine, but he has already said that we can totally ask him anything. So we will have some time for audience participation as well. So hopefully this little table it's as we know, right, in the fire service, all the problems in the world are solved at the firehouse kitchen table. Whether that's true or not, we all know that's another story, but it's certainly fun, and we get to engage in a lot of camaraderie and banter, and certainly learn about one another through food. And so I think food is one of the vessels that we have in common in terms of bringing all the ingredients together and creating some magic. So with that, we're going to start off with, you joined the Royal Navy as a teenager. Can you please tell us what drove you to this decision to go into the military at such a young age and become a cook?
That's a funny story, and I get back to what you just said about here in a minute, but the reality is, I was 11 years old. I joined a home economics class because there was 30 girls and me. So the chance of getting a girlfriend would be good. By the way, I made a quiche Lorraine and it was all over. Food took life, but I hated school. I was not a good school kid. My mother come from a very poor family. A dinner for me was 2 slices of bread, butter, and sugar. We lived on the street for a little bit, so I know what poor is. So for me, I would watch my mother get on a bus and go to work, and I would double back and drink my dad's beer.
At 11?
At 11 years old. Yeah, one day she called the house, I answered the phone like an idiot. And she said, and I won't tell you what she said, but about 20 minutes after that, I was marched to the recruitment office at 15 and a half years old. I'd already been a Sea Cadet at 11, so I'd been to military bases, Marine bases, ships, fell in love with it and knew that's what I wanted to do. I took the maths and English test. Now this is the best thing. So originally I wanted to be a firefighter. Yeah, and I would run hoses, I would do ladder drills, I would do running up towers. I was pretty good at it, but I wasn't really smart. So I took the English and maths test, 1 being the highest, 5 being the lowest. I got 5.5. The recruiter said to me, well, I got some good news and bad news. One, the good news is you're in the United States Royal Navy, and I went, woohoo. And the second thing is you're going to be a cook. And I already had the passion for the food from the home economics class. So the 3 things I was good at were cooking, sports, and drinking.
Okay. I can relate. That sounds good. All right. All right. I love this story. And again, we shared some similar backgrounds, and so it's nice. In those very early years in the kitchen, what lessons did you learn that helped drive your passion to succeed and set you up to become a successful entrepreneur?
I think there's one thing that the fire service, the police service, the military teaches you is teamwork. And when I joined the military at 15 and a half years old, literally, I went to my first basic training, and I was really good at my uniforms, my boots, making the bed, because I'd been a Sea Cadet and I'd been to all these bases beforehand. I had a chief who was an aviation guy, and one day he came to me and said, we're going to throw you out of the Navy in my basic training. And I said, why? And he said, because you're not a team player. And I said, it's not my job to teach these dudes, that's your job to teach these people. He was my boss, by the way. And he just looked at me and he said, change it. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, on my second day, and I was not the class leader, I was just good at my stuff. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I had 15 people in a dormitory. I turned everybody out of bed and their beds upside down. True story. Many people wanted to find me, and I said no, and I won't say it because this video's going, but I said, we're going to teach you how to do certain things. Clean your room, make your bed, do your boots, etc. And it took me about 6 weeks to get them all on board, but they all graduated 8 weeks later. And I think what the early lessons for me were, you can be the best human being in the world at what you think we are, but as a team player, you can achieve more things, right? And that's what the first lesson I learned in the military was. It wasn't about one, it was about all.
No, that's very true. Well, so this is a good segue into this question. What are some of the leadership lessons born from your time in the Royal Navy that you still apply to work today and to everything that you do?
Well, it's interesting because I've been the youngest at everything I've ever done, right? I come from a background, didn't finish school, and yet here I run 11 companies in billions of dollars in revenue, 6,000 employees, and the learning from the military is this, and there's only 4 lessons. Number 1 is empathetic leadership, and what does that actually mean? You better know as a chief or whoever in charge of the truck or the ladder, who your teammates actually are. Meaning that Mike may have an autistic daughter, your mother may have fallen down at 82 years old and broke a hip. We have to understand the people that work with us. Why is that important? Simply because we have to understand their day. I can go in and scream, and I'm really good at it. I make a lot of money screaming at people. But I have to understand the dynamic of the situation I'm walking into and what their days are like. So I alter my behavior based on listening to them. Empathetic leadership is really important. Number 2, and you all have this, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, is trust. I can't go into a battle with Mike, or you can't go into a fire knowing that somebody isn't behind you and has got you every step of the way. Number 3, ego. There are a lot of egos that tank companies. I see it every day from Fortune 500 companies that I take care of. And the last one is to be authentic. Because if you can master all four of those things, you'll be successful in any business you're in, no matter what it is. An airline business, a fire truck, a food company, a garage, or a fuel station, it doesn't matter. They're the four pillars for me of leadership. And hang on a minute, I really want to bring him, he's sitting there like a stuffed dummy.
Yeah, you're not going to get out of not saying anything. Like, yeah, you know.
What would you, I mean, we've known each other too long, but what would you say?
I mean, to tag on along with knowing who's actually working for you, it's not just what they're experiencing and what they're coming into their day, but what also motivates them. You know, what's important to me might not be important to the person next to me. So if I want to move up in rank, or I want to move up into larger leadership roles, then I know how to motivate that individual. You know, if it's money, well, if you want to make more money, you got to move up the chain of command. So I think it's really knowing what motivates them. Some people, it's about schooling. So if they want education, so if I know if I can throw some education their way, and that's going to get them to work harder, then I know how to motivate them to do the best that they can, and that in turn helps me out. So along kind of like what you were saying is knowing who's working for you, what they're going through, and then what motivates them.
Kind of a cool thing that happened right before we got on stage. We're all together in the room, and I get a text message from a guy that I used to work with in the Long Beach Fire Department, where I spent 21 years. And he said, hey Chief, this is Bernie, I haven't talked to you in some time, blah, blah, blah. I saw a picture of you and Michael, who I used to serve with in the Army in Iraq, and saw it on Instagram. So kind of the power of social media, and then sure enough, we just took another picture and sent it to him, and pretty cool. So, and I was able to hear a little bit more, and I'm going to go off script right now because Chef Irvine was telling me about your goal in terms of helping the combat wounded soldiers, and you had a number.
There are 1,500 double amputees on the war on terror in 18 years. And my goal, one of my goals obviously, is to make sure that we take them, and it's so similar between firehouses and our military. Post-traumatic stress hits both sections, right? And my job is, my goal is to make sure that we get them out of them 4 wars to stop them thinking about suicide. A prime example, I have given 2 firehouses in Florida PTS dogs that we train, 52 dogs a year, to ride in the truck every time they go to a shout. We call it a shout in England, I don't know what you call it here, but to a fire or to an accident. Because the trauma that you see of cutting people out of cars and the death and carnage that you see is very similar to what our military sees on a daily basis. Even today in Afghanistan, Syria, Israel, that we're not there, but we really are in the reality. We see so much of that carnage, and when you leave the service, whether it be the fire service, police service, or the actual military service, you lose a sense of belonging to a team. And that's why it's really important that our foundation, the Robert Irvine Foundation, the Garrison East Foundation, all those foundations that are out there are there to support and making people part of those teams so they don't forget. And we had a golf tournament in San Antonio a couple of months ago, and a young 27-year-old Marine came up to me and said, hey, we just ready to tee off, and he said, I was waiting to see how this would be before I shot myself. Well, committed suicide. That's a shock, right? Because you can't be in the body of somebody that you don't know. Yes, of course, we sent him to Mexico, put him through a psychedelic treatment, which now the MOD, Ministry of Defense, is starting to allow, because we've figured out that, post-traumatic stress is not a disorder. post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic growth can be triggered by food, it can be triggered by light, balloons, all those things. But we can change that with different methods of helping. And psychedelic treatment is one of those. And it works tremendously. So I think that's my goal, is to help everybody. You know, I was put on this earth, I came from nothing, I've done well, and I use a platform specifically to do that. You know, I travel 345 days a year, 150 of those around the globe. We just came back from the USS Eisenhower, we came back from Cuba in the last couple of weeks. Before that was Australia, New Zealand, and all the other things that we do. We're off to Estonia, Lithuania, we've done 8 weeks in Poland. So we travel a lot, but it's all in, and you talked about, and I'm going on a little bit, but you talked about the firehouse table. Food, guys, is the international language of hope and love. And why do I say that? Because if you have kids, the quickest way to get your kids to tell what's going on in their life is to take the phone away, number one, because that's the rule I have in my house. No phones, we sit around the table and we eat and we talk. And it's the same with the firehouse. But we have a program in the foundation, Robert Irvine Foundation, called Breaking Bread for Heroes. And what it does, twice a week, around the globe, whether I'm there or I'm not, we feed 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, and they get a chance to talk to each other about the shitty days they've had, or the good days they've had, or the family, or the birth, or the, you know, and I think food breaks down the barriers to entry of anybody, no matter who it is. So the kitchen table in the firehouse, and you know I've been to a few firehouses, is a great way to open up the mind of that. My concern with the firehouse is, and you know what it is that you're paying for your own food when you're on duty, and that to me is absolutely deplorable and disgusting. And I'm working on that, believe me, with some senators and some other things. But so yeah, food for the kitchen table and goals are all about helping people.
That's incredible. Yeah, we were sharing some, you know, just stories about people in California. It's different in different places around the country, but that assume that tax dollars are paying for our chow every day, right? Even we get to educate them on, no, that's not really what's happening. And so Chef Irvine is aware of that, so I appreciate that, which is good. And he does pass that on to elected officials, since he does have that platform. So as fire service leaders, we strive to motivate our teams, and we look and learn from folks that inspire us. When you think back to your early years, who were the people that inspired and motivated you?
Inspiration comes in many forms, and I don't think there's one form. It can be a guy sweeping the street, somebody in a store, a magazine, a TV show. I was never inspired when I was in the military by leadership, because I thought, so you have to understand, in the British military, it's very different to the US military, because it's upstairs, downstairs in the British military. There are them, and there are us, right? And when my father was an army guy, my brother was an SAS guy, special air service, and when I became a cook in the Navy, it was a subservient job, right? Yes, sir. My dad went nuts, literally. Didn't talk to me for 2 years, because I didn't join the army and I became a cook. I worked for a 2-star admiral who was more like my dad than my dad was, actually, funnily enough. And then I went from cooking to special operations and jumping out of planes and doing stupid things that I still do now. Inspiration, and again, Michael's a big inspiration for me, talking about resiliency and moving on through pain and suffering. And I think every year we do a march, Michael's done it, we do a march, a 56-mile march over a 24-hour period in Scotland, where you'll see, and Michael could talk about this in a second, but you know, Michael's had 85% of his total body burnt. He'll get into that in a second. But when we take 100 American servicemen to Scotland. We marched this 54-mile march with 900 coalition wounded. And what does that mean? So we start walking, right? It's from 2,000 to 7,000 feet above sea level. It's shag you out completely, tired. But what is exciting and why I take the time to do it 3 days every year is because every 2 miles or a mile, you're talking with somebody from another country that doesn't have what we have. They don't have the support of post-traumatic stress and injuries. And so we listen to them. 2 miles they'll move on, 2 miles we'll move on, the next couple. So after 56 miles, we've hit everybody, as many as we can. Then we meet in a pub to drink beer and alcohol and continue those talks, and they become lifelong friends. I think for me, that's what caring is. I mean, you've done it, you've been there. I mean,
Yeah, kind of same question, Michael, like when you think back to, either your upbringing or the Army or Special Forces, people that inspire you.
don't say me. I know.
Yeah, you can say him.
No, I definitely wouldn't say him. I might write his hotels, but that's about as far as it goes. No, growing up in the military, I didn't, there was a big break between the military and my family. My grandfather was World War II, and then all my uncles and other family members were just a little bit too young for Vietnam. So there was just this big skip. So I didn't grow up knowing a lot about the military. I always, growing up, I want to be a police officer today. Tomorrow I was a firefighter, then it was the Army. And then kind of similar as to Robert is, I was a little bit of a hellion growing up, and I needed to get out of my town and get away from the things I was in. And so the Army was it, but for me, I knew I didn't want to be just regular. And I think that's why the Rangers, working in special operations, having a little bit more goal-orientated, kind of is what inspired me. And then moving on and getting injured and being in the hospital, looking to the guys to my left and right who had very similar injuries, whether they were missing their legs, they were missing their hands, they were burned. It made my recovery that much easier. But I didn't even realize it until I went to the World Burn Conference in New York City. I want to say it was like '09. And there was this woman who was burned in a house fire. She was 5 years old, and she was now 65 years old, and she's still angry and mad and going through the different levels of depression and grief. And I couldn't understand it because now I'm only like a year and a half past my injury, and I'm already starting to do activities and do events and try to, start taking the next step forward. And I had to ask her, why haven't you moved past this? And she reminded me that, when you're in the military, when you're in this community, you have this brotherhood, you have support to your left and right no matter where you go. And she's like, I was the only one in my town that was like me. Growing up through school, nobody wanted to date me. And it made me realize how lucky we are. And it's whether you're in the police force, the firehouse, in the military service. If something bad happens to us, we do have an incredible amount of support. And so for me, I find that inspirational, and hopefully I can kind of continue it on and be the inspiration for the next person.
I mean, what an inspiration, right? Unbelievable. Thank you. All right, back to you. Back to this guy.
You need glasses. You look like you're struggling.
I am struggling. I did this earlier today and I forgot my glasses.
I just think he needs his fan.
Well, and that was given to me by a dear friend of mine, so I'm going to have to say sorry to her later. Is it destroyed?
No, it's still going.
Don't destroy it. Don't destroy it. There you go.
Put it over there.
Okay, clearly you've had your successes, but certainly along the way there were obstacles and setbacks. Can you share a few of those with us? And you're already smiling, so you can probably think of some.
Oh my God, I've had so many setbacks, it's not even funny. I think the biggest one I faced, and we don't have a camera here to show you, so I finished my service career, we get released and you have your service records, right? So I was already on Food Network. I was actually in the President of the United States office talking about a project that we were doing in 2008. And I made CNN headline news in the President of the United States office. And it said, Robert Irvine is fake. I just looked and went, what? And he went, what? And basically, my service records show that I worked with Charles and Diana and Majesty the Queen for many years. And I show you, you know. So all I had was a service record. We had no pictures because we didn't have iPhones then. So the Food Network suspended me and did their own investigation. I had 2 suitcases of pictures and travel and all the things, whatever. But I never had a picture with me with Charles and Diana. So they said, well, you know, we need it. So the British government, we didn't have any pictures with the British government, but the President of the United States at that point said, well, I can tell you, I've got a service record and it's perfect, right? So fast forward, November of last year, I got reinstated to Food Network because everybody got involved, but it's a true statement. So Michael Simon took my show for about 8 shows. They only could show 2 because the rest were crap. But anyway, and Michael's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
But this was how I started the military.
Was that dinner possible at the time?
That was dinner possible.
Love that
So
show.
that picture there is the honeymoon cruise of Charles and Diana, and I'm in the middle at 15 and a half years old.
We'll show it to you guys later.
We'll show you
What-
tonight.
I'm gonna get it on the screen.
Oh, okay. So the funny part was, I haven't released that to the general public yet. So last year, November, I got 68 pictures from the original photographer to my website and said, hey, Robert, you know, I'm not doing very well, but I think you might like these pictures. I'm like, where were you, asshole? I could have done that. Like, it would have saved a lot of grief. That was a big failure because I was literally living in the White House. I'm the only chef in history to cook for 6 living presidents of the United States at once. In the year 2000, the White House was 200 years anniversary. And I cooked for, you name it, president and travel the world. And right now I still do the same thing with the president will call me and say, hey, we're going to do this. I want you there. We'll send a team, we'll do the food, and we'll disappear. And that's, when people laugh at me because 50% of the country hate this one, 50% hate this one, and every time we post pictures on social media, I'm like, look, dude, I work for the seal of the United States of America.
There you go. Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
I vote, what I vote, you'll never know about, and you don't need to know about. What you vote, I don't care about. So that was one failure.
Oh, that's funny. Chief, yeah, man, Frank Lee's got jokes today. Cool. Look at this. Fan.
Oh,
There you go.
so this is, I'm going to move for a second, but this is the actual picture. And you can see how young this is. This is Diana mixing the Christmas puddings. And the story that is very good about this, you can see how young they are. And if you look to the right of Diana, that's me right in the middle there, a young kid. And what was important about this was we lost her earring, the back of her earring, in that mix. And it was given by the Sultan of Brunei, and we had to take all the mix after this picture with garbage bags on the floor, and that was 68 pounds of fruit. And we had to find the back of her earring. We did find it, by the way, because she had a meeting the next day with the Sultan, but that's how it started, and that's how my career started before I went to special operations. My brother was in the special boat service, I was in the special air service. Sorry, he was in special air service, I was special boat service. So that was one of my biggest failures, not having a picture or pictures. I got back in and it was all great and dandy. Another one was I started a company. I used to work for Donald Trump. I used to run 4 of his casinos. As a young 30-year-old kid, I said to him one day, I think you're making the biggest mistake. He was making $784 million a year in his casinos, one at a time, so 4 of them. Wow. They were doing 15 million in food and beverage, and I said, hey, I've got an idea, maybe you want to listen to me. And he just laughed at me because I was 30 years old. And I said, I can buy futures and I can save you billions of dollars. Well, at that point, I started at $35,000, $55,000 to $125,000 to $250,000. And then my bonus, because I did all the purchasing, was $4.5 million. It's not a bad bonus, right? So I started a company called Irvine Thyme, T-H-Y-M-E, the herb. And I was doing feeding for the military, in other words, steak, and I would tumble the steak in seasoning and then sell the steak while I was working with Trump. So I had two businesses going at the same time. And Tops were the largest hamburger company in the world. They got listeria. It closed them down. They were a big, big company, which meant I lost all my military feeding platform at that time. And that was another failure. But again, here we are now, years later, doing different things. So I think failure is a great way to learn. My only saying would be, don't fail at the same thing twice. Because otherwise that means you're an idiot.
I prefer being just a slow learner.
But slow learning costs money, guys. And when we talk about billions of dollars and companies that make billions of dollars that we have, is based on, look, I could have retired a long time ago, I'm 58 years old. It's about learning and being able to diversify a product. So we have food, we have nutrition, we have clothing, we have drones, we have AI, we have self-ordering platform. We have a lot of different things, and we employ a lot of people. But it's up to me to be able to understand those people, number one, then motivation, because what Mike said is really important. Some people like a pat on the back, some people like more money, some people like vacations, some people want education, some people want to be bigger in the organizations. And once you understand those, I can tell you in 16 years of being in business, I have lost 3 people out of 6,000. And why did I lose them? And by the way, they were all Army CW5s, because they couldn't adapt to the outside world. In other words, I would ask them to do something, they were heads of companies, and they would want somebody to pick up their bag, somebody to make their bread, somebody to make, I'm like, guys, that's not what the outside world is. The real world is you get up and you do the shit yourself. And if you can't do that, and they couldn't do that, they went on to move on. That's the only 3 people in 16 years that I've actually lost. Everybody else has been with me that long. Ryan started with me, that young stud muffin over there, when he was 21 years old. Our first trip was to Afghanistan. His mother said to me, he's now 36, his mother said to me, don't get him killed. The first time we landed in Frontenac, which is on the border of Pakistan, where the big reservoir was, the first thing we did was literally come out of a helicopter and get bombarded with RPGs and gunfire, literally laid on the floor in front of a big stack of water, getting beat the shit out of, basically. And my daughter called me, she was 8 years old at the time, she called me on my phone and said, hey Daddy, what are you doing? I said, I'm a little bit busy right now, can you call back later? And we were literally, and Mike knows the feeling, literally getting, and he's still here, so I did a good job.
You did. So Chef, you've been honored with many awards for both culinary and philanthropic achievements. Is there one honor that stands out among all these honors, and why?
Look, I've got Congressional Medal of Honors, Bob Hope Award, I've got the Best Civilian in the World Award, I got it, They mean nothing to me. Awards don't mean anything to me. For me, spending time with the men and women that were the close relation of first responders and making a meal, and I laugh, right, because I was just on the Eisenhower on our way to Israel. She's there now. And I was making hot dogs and chicken and, just things. And people will be like saying, oh, I'm so glad. Thanks, Chef. Thanks, Chef. Thanks, Chef. I'm like, and I laugh when you say celebrity, because to me, I have a platform, but I'm not a celebrity. I make eggs and hot dogs. That's the reality. Well, maybe some presidential stuff, but I'm lucky enough to feed every head of state in the free world. Literally, every head of state. Nobody else can say that. And when I put them around a table, I only wish I could take each dish from their national dish, take one bite, pass it to the right, and listen to the customs and why they make it and how they make it, so we would understand more about culture. And it's okay to be different. So for me, medals and awards and recognition is, I'm actually embarrassed by it. And it sounds weird when I say that. To me, I'd rather be in the middle of Afghanistan making a hot dog. And funny, that story when we talk about him being 21 years old, there was nobody left on this base. We had blown that base up 2 weeks before. That's why I wanted to go there. There was no sandbags, there was no walls. Everybody had left and we were stood there, laid down our own. And I found a refrigerated container. And he will tell you, I thought it was a good idea to make some food on a barbecue. We opened it, there was lobster tails, there was steak. I found two half-grilled barrels, grilled stuff. And I said, what a great idea, let's make them dinner. Great idea in process, right? But it's also putting smoke for a target. I did it anyway. And when they came back, we had lobster and steak to feed them. And I met people, years and years later, in fact, a couple of years ago and one last year, they said, you remember that dinner you did? It still sticks in my mind. So for me, and we've been doing this a long time, 16, 17, 18 years, where we've been in war zones and countries and fixing things. And I see people that I knew when they were 18 years old and now 30, 40, 50 years old. That's the biggest accolade that I could ever have. That's what food is to me. It's about the relationship with people and their kids. So, yeah.
Some fire stations are seeing more people eat on their own because they have different dietary needs or eat on a different schedule. Is there a way to still bring a diverse group of people together?
Look, it's tough because of the schedules that you have and the trucks that you drive, whether you're a ladder, whether you're a truck, whether you're, whatever. For me, it's the most important time of the day, to the point that I am now in the middle of modernization of our military, modernization of food service, retention, resiliency, and recruitment. And it used to be, 1 meal, 2 meals, 3 meals a day is good, right? I think that's not good, because we have athletes, and you're all athletes for the time you're on your watch. We have young men and women who do the same thing, so I'm advocating that we feed them every 2.5 hours. Why is that important? Not only because of the food that we give, because of the job that you do, but also, again, that interaction. It doesn't matter about whether you're a vegan or whether you're a vegetarian, whether you're a pescatarian or you're a meat eater. There has to be a time when you come together, and it's so tough for you guys, because the minute you sit down, you spend 5 hours making dinner, you're off and you're sick, it's getting cold, right? We have the same thing in the military, except for Jackson, where the training base is. But I think it's so important that you sit down, you bust each other's chops, because the fire service, please understand, it's the same as the military, and some of you have been in the military and then transferred out, you in the Navy, etc. And I think busting chops is great morale and teamwork, and food, again, I say, is a central part of that. No matter what you are, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. I was in Connecticut at a naval base a couple of months ago, and they were so excited to show me that the guy made the bread. Remember, he said, I'm going to show you this bread. It was fucking terrible. And I showed him how to make bread right then and there, and from now, I'm gonna get a picture every week about the new bread he makes. But it makes me laugh because food engages. So I would say to this, no matter where you come from, even with your kids at home, take a moment and sit down, because I think we've lost that in the world, not just here, in the world we've lost the meal period. I remember growing up as a young kid, every Sunday, the only thing my mother could ever make, and this is a true story, I wrote a whole book about her, she was so proud of it, so I thought it was about a shitty food, was she made a Sunday roast. And to me, that sitting down with my brothers and my sisters, my mom and dad, made it real. And I talk about that all the time, the family unit. And it can be a personal family unit or a firefighting house, a police house, a military. And we're changing that in the military feeding right now because the food is so bad that people don't want to go to the dining facilities, so the usage of those dining facilities are down. We're in the middle of changing that, to bring that camaraderie, that mix of excitement back. We know who the chief is, we know who the president of the United States is, we know who the commanding general is. Who gives a monkeys? I don't need you to pitch all over it. It should be like a collegiate feeding atmosphere. It's a lot slightly different in firehouses, but at least you can put people together. I know that was long for you.
No, not for me. Maybe I saw some people.
No, they're all engaged. You just look like you're falling asleep.
Oh, man.
Needs coffee or something.
Actually.
Or a Red Bull.
Yeah, that's true.
Or a gin and tonic.
Those two guys over there definitely know it's definitely caffeine time for me. The gin and tonic too, yeah. We're an hour away from that.
Oh, we'll do that later.
All right. Deal. When talking about your latest book, Overcoming Impossible, you remarked that you finally have enough hindsight to analyze the moves that transform me from an inspiring entrepreneur to a successful one. What are the top 3 moves from experiences that you feel fire service leaders can adopt to help build motivated teams and become better leaders?
I think you already answered the question, right? With the 4 pillars of success. Because, excuse me, the good thing with firefighters is they work X amount of days and half of them have different jobs, right, outside of the fire service, because they're entrepreneurs in their own right. I think if you want something, you have to really understand what that is. If you watch my show, Restaurant Impossible, it's about people that have gone into business that have no right being in business because, you know, Amanda, that's your name right now, Amanda is Italian, she makes good meatballs. So Joey, her husband, said, oh, we should have a restaurant. Well, because she makes good meatballs doesn't mean she's going to be a good restaurateur. And they get into the restaurant business, all of a sudden they're $350,000 in debt. And then a guy like me comes in and says, why are you being so stupid? You have to really understand the business, and firefighters and fire chiefs and fire commissioners have to really understand that the revolutionizing of the fire service, whether it be equipment, whether it be personnel, and looking at things differently. And I tell you why this is so important. The book talks about this, the 4 pillars. I told you, empathetic leadership, the trust, authenticity, all those things. Our military, here's something really interesting. Our military hasn't changed since World War I on its feeding platform. And yet here we are in 2024, the largest consumer of food in the world, you know, with people, a lot of people, and yet we've never changed the systems, the way we purchase, the way we cook, the way we deliver, the way we find food. And I think you're all operators, and the operators, not the chiefs, the operators have to tell the chiefs, as well as the chiefs have to see and listen. And I think the biggest thing leadership has to do is listen. And yes, chiefs are on there, but as you go up the ladder from chief, and I don't even know what the next level is, up to the commissioner, the revolution of fighting fires with the technology and the use of those people has to continue to evolve. And if it doesn't, it will be like our military. Look, we have a brand new B-21 bomber, let me tell you, you've never seen it yet, but it's unbelievable. I've flown on a U-2, I've flown in an F-35 and all those things. Technology has changed, but if you think about a U-2 plane, it was built in 1940. The only thing that's changed is electronics in it. Only 1,000 pilots had flown it, but it's still since 1940. It still works because we keep upgrading the electronics and whatever, but I think that's what I would say the leadership across any business. And Walmart is a prime example of a large company, right? So their CEO, Doug McMillan, I just opened a 350,000 square foot wellness center with kitchens and pools and that was gifted by the Walton family at $210 million. So we can educate people, their associates, how to feed themselves correctly. They're starting to work that realize that, hey guys, we can have great equipment, but unless we take care of the people, we don't have a business. And I think that's the biggest thing leadership across the board has to realize. There is an investment in you, and you, because we forget that the wear and tear on humans is not like equipment. So I think that's what I would say about leadership, is to start to listen and look for ways to change what you do for the betterment, to keep up with equipment, but also keep up with people.
Yeah, that's great. You mind talking about the restaurants that you currently own, just in case folks are traveling out there?
I've got one in Vegas, it's about to be blown up. One in Tropicana, it's going to be made way. They close it on April the 2nd, so if you're in Vegas on March the 30th, we're going to have a big drink session. They're putting the Oakland A's stadium there. I don't care, they're going to pay me out, so it's good. We'll move it somewhere else. But one I'm really proud of is actually we are the only full-service restaurant inside the Pentagon, with 38,000 people a day that go through there. Even through COVID, we stayed open. There's one thing about our company is we have a distillery. So our distillery was the first people in the country, actually in the world, to make sanitizer during COVID and give away in our tri-state area for Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. You came, we give it to our first responders, our doctors, our nurses, our firefighters, our National Guardsmen. You came to our facility, you bring stuff, and we put it in there, and we still make it for Merck now. But our Fit Crunch bars, if you've never seen it,
Very tasty.
hide under a rock somewhere.
Costco, I believe, right?
They're everywhere, not Costco right now for a special, but during that we fed doctors, nurses, firefighters, first responders again, because they were working around the clock. Our food line does the same. So every business we have, a percentage of everything, whether it's vodka, drink responsibly, gin and all that stuff, or our Fit Crunch, or our food, or our clothing goes into the foundation. So we can actually make the changes to people's lives.
That's incredible. We have some time to actually engage with the audience. So you guys good with that? A little Q&A?
I will do that, but here's the warning. Really for you. You can ask any question.
Through a fan ad.
You can ask any question, but be ready for the answer.
All right. Well, like I said, they're asking, not me. So, Billy, you'll help us out. Anybody want to ask the chef or Michael a question?
Well, this is the easiest session ever.
Oh, you want to wait for the bar. I know what Heather's thinking. Yeah.
Yes.
Have you seen the study of the National Institute of Health about commensality, that phrase that means eating together? They actually did a study entitled Eating Together at the Firehouse, How Workplace Commensality Relates to the Performance of Firefighters.
Well, I think that's across the board. It's not just, I have seen it. There's things in there I disagree with, not that point, but there are things in that report that I disagree with. Look, anytime you put a group of people together with food, it creates camaraderie, right? And I can tell you, I've just watched the movie called Fury. It's an old movie, right? But what you may not know is that it's actually a true story Do you know that? You're nodding your head, but Fury is about a World War II tank division. Brad Pitt plays a sergeant. You've seen it, you're nodding your head there. But what you don't actually realize, Brad Pitt was the only tank left, and they had a very important mission to stop a crossroads from being taken over by the Germans because it was part of our D-Day objective. One person survived, one tank survived, and the tank commander was played by Brad Pitt. When they come through some of the cities, they would grab food, which you saw, and women at the same time, but that's a different story. But they grabbed food, they ate together as a team. There was a 4-man, 5-man team. What was so impressive about, and I've never seen the movie, but I know the story, what was so impressive about it, the one person that actually survived through coming out the tunnel or the exit in the bottom of the tank, and you know that the Germans used to have Tiger tanks, and we had really shitty tanks. A platoon of German soldiers were coming to take them, and literally firefight was ridiculous, but a very true story. And the person that survived by jumping out the bottom of the tank after a hand grenade had gone in the middle of it was actually a young man named Audie Murphy. You may know him as the famous actor. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor because he survived and told the story. But what was really incredible about that, and if you watch the movie, every time they sat together, it was about food. And when they were given this task to hold this crossroad, Brad Pitt said, well, I'm staying. The other guy said, well, no, we're leaving you. You're going to die on your own. And then the young 18-year-old gunner, which actually was Audie Murphy, said, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm going to die with you. They all let him stay. They all died except him. And the reason I'm telling that story is because it was all based around the food during that period. Camaraderie and the teamwork, just like the firehouse. You know when you've got breathing apparatus in and you're going up the ladder or you're in the building and you're watching what you're doing. I trust you because I've sat with you. I know you. I know your technical ability. And I think, again, I'm fighting this military feeding money right now, which I'm jumping on the bandwagon of firefighters, because I have 2 firehouses in Brooklyn that I pay for, food-wise, a year, because I believe that food time and that camaraderie is so important, because what we don't talk about, or not in my experience with the firehouses, they don't talk about each other's issues. I was in one in Florida where I put the dogs because they had so many car accidents and so much fire and whatever. Their stress was becoming so much, but they weren't being handled. And by that, I mean by the fire department didn't take care of that. Our job, you're an extension for me of our military. You're there when you're running in, when everybody's running out. You're saving people, you're salving buildings if you can. And what you don't know about me, and you can look it up, when I first joined the military, the British firefighters went on strike. I was in the military in Cornwall, and we have what they call green goddesses. Please look it up, it's hilarious. Our job, and I was a driver, but a young kid. My job was to drive to the fire, get the people out, and let the house burn. We never stopped the property, it was just... But look at the green goddesses, they're from 1940. They're still in service today in the British military. So I think, again, going back to the food study, is about this. We need to connect. Husbands and wives and girlfriends and boyfriends and spouses and others go on dates for a reason, right? And what, you know, maybe watch a movie, but always eat something. Look at every event in the world that happens, starting in the Bible, the Last Supper, there was food. Marriages, births, funerals, divorces, treaties are all done over food. Why? Because it drops a barrier and allows people in, no matter who you are. But I think it's more important in the service industry, first responders, military, etc., to really emphasize that. And the government, the states, should be paying for that feeding, not you. So I am aware.
Thank you. Anyone question or comment?
First of all, I gotta tell you, Mike, you're a very inspirational person for being here. I appreciate your service. You're a 10th Mountain Division, as my brother was. So a tip of the cap to you, my man. Thank you. Thank you for your service. And Robert, for you as well for being here. I appreciate you for representing the fire service and military. You're a bad dude. You know, especially people like you, like Mr. Sinise. There's not too many of you, and you guys are very successful. But you're giving back to the people that do truly need it, and we appreciate that. The question I have for you is, I've seen your show. I love it. My wife loves it. Okay, she's the one that watches it, not me. But, I'm kidding. We all watch it because we like to cook. We like to cook in the firehouse. And you're absolutely right, Eddie, Chief. The kitchen table is where everything happens. You laugh, you cry, you take shots at each other. It's called family time. Yeah. And have you ever thought about doing a show as far as
As a matter of fact.
ads?
So
Well, hold on the West Coast. So, but that's something that I think it would be really super cool, and you get a big following from the firefighters that love to cook and also love family time.
well, number one, I've done a couple of shows with firefighters, one in Philadelphia, one in Long Beach Island on the East Coast. I rebuilt a firehouse that was damaged during Hurricane Sandy to the point that it was one of my best things. I did a pancake house at the same time as I did the firehouse. It's probably the best firehouse in the country because I built it. Upstairs, and the combination, and they got a new truck. I just talked to Eddie about his idea. He's already done a show with 20 episodes. I said it was boring as hell.
Not that one. The Firehouse Chefs.
No, I'm just telling you the truth. He sold it to some other, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, wherever. Look, I think there's the general public, and we just discussed this. If I'm running a show to show fire, I want a beginning. Where did the fire service begin? Where has it gone to? Where is it now? And where are we going in the future across the joint force of the fire service, which includes forest fires and Hawaii and all those kind of. I think the general public takes for granted, just like they do the police force, what you actually do. And it really pisses me off because I see the grief, I see the joy, and we just literally sat for 20 minutes out there talking about that, and I said, give me a one-pager of what it is, I'll scratch it out and rewrite it, and then we'll pitch it. Because I think there is an exciting, look, COPS has been running for 25 years now, right? Where they embed somebody, and we have military embedded people, and I've got one on the Eisenhower right now. I think there's a great thing there that's a Netflix or a CBS or a Paramount or somewhere that people will be educated in. But it has to be an exciting, it can't be, I hate saying this, but it can't be talking heads, right? Because talking heads don't work. It's got to be, hey, the alarm goes off, and you're in, and they're there. Not literally in the building, but they're there watching, because I have to feel that I'm present in that moment of the table feeding, running. So there's a beginning, middle, and end of that show. But I think there's a thing for it absolutely more now than ever. I do. And you have to have that, and you have to have, Well, no, see, I agree, as you, on both coasts,
Both coasts.
but also Hawaii
Yeah.
and all the, you know, what is causing these effects to happen? And we know in Hawaii what that was. We know electrical cable, we know all those things, but subject matter experts that sit here and just go, sorry dude, that's not exciting to me, and I'm going to switch off. It's the same as Restaurant Impossible, which I've just moved from Food Network after 16 years, and don't repeat this, to CBS, because we haven't even announced it yet, but with 2 new shows. But yes, I can see there being, and you have to have characters there, right? Characters have to be the mainstay of, you know, sorry ladies, but ladies love the firefighters with their jackets off and they, you know, the muscles. And there's a piece of that, but then there's a serious side of, so it has to be a very fine blend of what it is. I have some female firefighters that, Jesus Christ, can wipe the floor with the men firefighters. I mean, just amazing. Same with special operations women. You know, we're at this stage in the world evolution. Women are way smarter than men will ever be. It's just the way God made them. Sorry, my wife tells me that every week. And I agree. I have two females in my restaurant in the Pentagon, and it's so funny because if you'd have said to me, I was gonna hire these, I would have said, you'll be out of your mind. One of the girls, so we opened a restaurant 7 years ago in the Pentagon. It's supposed to be $500,000, ended up being 2.6 million. That's another story. I hired a guy and a female chef. Female chef was spectacular, but I hired the guy. Again, I'm sitting in the United States President's office, and on this, my manager comes up on the headline news. He was indicted for a cold case murder 13 years ago. Jeez. Cold case murder, you would never know, right? Anyway, he killed the chief of police's son in a marijuana thing. And anyway, so we hired a young lady from McDonald's. And I'm like, I'm Robert Irvine, and McDonald's, really? It was the best thing. I was so wrong. It was the best thing I ever did. She knows 38,000 people from all the different countries in the world that walk into my restaurant by name. McDonald's teaches the best management skills in the food and beverage industry across the board. And I wish I had 20 of them. I can't get 20 of them, but I wish I had 20 of them. So again, that leadership thing, and you know, we go on about that all day. Leadership and understanding is for me the biggest thing in the military, in the civilian world, in the firefighting world, the police officer world, the doctors, the nurses, same thing, the teachers, because how do you retain and hire people? Everybody doesn't want to be a soldier anymore, or a sailor, or nobody wants to do that. If you look at our recruitment, the only team to recruit this year, or beginning of end of 23, was the Marine Corps. They hit their target by 24 people. They're the only ones in our force to hit it. And it's getting tighter and tighter, and yet our scope of operation is bigger. You know, we've got Ukraine, we've got Taiwan and China, we've got Iran, we've got Syria, and we still have Iraq and Afghanistan, believe it or not, we're still there. And nobody wants to play in those wars anymore. And I don't know what it is in the firefighting world, but challenges, it's tough. So we're looking at changing the whole feeding platform to be privatized in Oconus, which is continental US, as opposed to war zones where we'll have military feeding, obviously, but because it's tough to hire people. You guys are so easy.
Hi there. I'm a father of 2 school-age kids, and everything that I see you do, I can see correlating to school lunches. since I believe COVID, the school and state have been touting how great it is that they're providing school lunches to the kids. And then my kids tell me the crap that they have and Pop-Tarts and chocolate milk and all this garbage. It seems like there'd be a strong correlation with what you're doing military-wise and the big restaurants and all that. Are you doing anything with the schools or thinking about it?
So I'm doing the veteran schools or the military schools at the moment. I have a keynote speech late last year in California about school feeding, and it's so funny because I got up and said exactly what you just said, and then I got 15,000 food people from schools telling me I'm wrong, and I'm like, no, I'm not. It was great. It was an amazing hour of bickering. I won, by the way, but look, when you're getting, so for me, I get between $14 and $17 to feed the military 3 meals a day. Schools get anywhere from $2.30 to $5. What I'm saying to the school system is, look, we have so much waste from our farming communities. We're demolishing and we're burning and we're getting rid of stuff. Isn't there a way in which we can create a menu across the board, a nutritional menu, that allows us to use the excess? Look, if you're going to burn it, give it away. I'd rather you give it away to somebody and use it than just, and we are literally burning stuff while we sit here. And I said that to a few senators, a few states. Have they done it yet? No. It takes a lot of collaboration, and there's nobody in the school system, not even, like, we talk about governors, I'm going to get into politics here because I won't, but there's one guy in Pennsylvania, and look, his name is Josh Shapiro, who's doing something like that, right? And I know him simply because he takes care of veterans and the VA in Pennsylvania and what he does with small business and putting people together. He's got a collaboration similar to that. But he's the only one, I want him to run for president. He's not going to be there for another, 8, 12 years. But the idea that we can cross each other, regardless of, this is where this country is. Look, you've got these 50% over there that love this, you've got 50% over there, or 49 and 38 and 4 here. It's not even about politics anymore, it's about who wants to be on TV the most and instead of getting stuff done. And I think that's the biggest problem is if we could, Jamie Oliver tried it here, he made a big mistake of calling people stupid. Not a good thing to tell California mums, but he had the right idea because he did it in England. England is a lot smaller to do it, but he did manage to do it. He wanted to do it here, and he messed it up. So is there an opportunity there? Yeah, but it's going to take an awful lot of change. Especially now, parents that want to bring their kids to a better, healthier level are actually sending most of their kids to school with the food. And you know what they do? It's like, you switch mine, I want the chocolate bar, and that's what they do. I don't see it happening in the near future, I really don't. Not for me, just because I'm so busy. I literally had to move away from my companies to take this job on full-time to help the military modernize. To the point that, I'm the unpaid federal government guy. So, for me, it's fixing them first because they're the front line of defense. And when we ask somebody to go into Ukraine or on a border of Poland, we have 17 bases in Poland, which you don't know about. And it's so funny because we have Polish housewives cooking the food for our troops, which is amazing, by the way. I wish we could do it here. But they are under tent, living in tent, just like we did in Afghanistan, with them cooking the food, and authentic food. And the guys love it. Like, we don't want to come home from Poland. We want to stay in Poland. So, I would like to see that. We have started a thing, Planet Fitness, and I'm not an advert. I use them everywhere I go because they're small town USA gyms. But they started a program in June till, I think, September. Don't hold me to that date, but between June and September, or June and August, if you're 15 years old, you can sign up and use that gym for 3 months for free. I am trying to work on that with the National Guard right now, so that families that don't have bases to live on can at least have somewhere to go and work out, because we hold them to the same fitness regime as our active duty men and women. I think, again, it's an education at the parent level. And when you think the economic recession, quote unquote, that we're in right now, where families can't feed themselves and they use food banks. And by the way, it's not people living on the street, it's working poor. The most, 3 Squared is the biggest in the country, in Vegas, excuse me, has most veterans and firefighters and police officers that get fed. They do hundreds of million meals a day, right? Finished meals and groceries to go. And I think once we try and fix the pay, the living conditions, all those things that revolve around economic decisions of governments and states, then we can start to really attack the problem in schools. Because I know a family, I did a show with Michelle Obama in DC, I did an after-school program with them. And these kids were getting up and drinking Coca-Cola and eating Kit Kats and Snicker bars for breakfast, right? Because they can't afford, their mums and dads will go to McDonald's, buy four Big Macs, and then not eat themselves, just feed their kids. I'm working on a program in the military where the Navy Exchange, Marine Exchange, and AFES, Air Force Exchanges, have a section for $5 or $6 where you get the protein, the vegetables, and 16 different ways to cook it in recipe cards, so that we can feed families, because they don't have to make money. I would love to. I've talked to Doug McMillan at Walmart to do the same thing. We're not there yet, but I'm beating him up a little bit because he's a great guy and he wants to do the right things. But again, there's an economic value to that. So I can only push so far, and have to ease up a little bit, and then I go back and push more.
We have a little bit more time, so do we have another question or comment?
That's easy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chef, what's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal?
Yes.
Is great. If it's not with a service member, and I'm making it myself, it's mashed potatoes and roast chicken. I get to sit in every 3-star Michelin restaurant there is, and I'm like, ugh, you know. If I go to a game, I want a hot dog, because I never get a chance to eat a hot dog, because everybody watches you when you eat. Like, what's he eating? I'm like, give me a hot dog. And they're like, oh, Robert Irvine's eating hot dogs. Oh, he's eating chicken. And it's really funny being in, I'm in 170 countries with 1 billion people every week. Dubbed in Japanese, Spanish, you name it. I went to a special forces base in Honduras for 4th of July to do some food for them. And the minute I got off the plane, I got mobbed by people. And they want to bring food to you, and you know what it's like. People bring you food and you want to taste it in front of you, and I'm like, oh, I'll eat it later, because you don't know where it comes from, what's in it, and you know, whatever. So it's really difficult to eat. I go to a restaurant, we'll do it later on tonight. Before I order anything, the chef, who I've known for many years, will come and he's like, oh, let me send you some stuff out. And they send out everything. So I don't even bother eating anymore. I'm like, just send me whatever you want to send me. And I did a show here, 2014, I think it was. And don't ask me the name of the restaurant. Ryan will tell you, but I loved it here, you know. So it was my first time back
I
here.
think you guys went to Dwayne's at the Mission Inn.
I stayed there, but the restaurant was some, what was the name of it? Mill Creek Barbecue. And they're still running, so we did a good job. So, you know, I think the biggest one I did was in Cerritos, California. They were $1.1 million in debt, and they're now doing $3.7 million in revenue. So, well, I mean, it works, but. So, roast chicken and mashed potatoes, you can't beat it. And by the way, I'm okay with lots of butter in it. I don't care. That's one thing I don't care about.
Too. That was good. Michael, do you have anything you'd like to say to wrap up?
Just make sure I'm on this time. No, I just want to thank all of you. You know, we kind of touched on it, you know, when we talk about the mentality, the military and the police departments and the firehouses. I'm lucky enough I get to travel. I've been in quite a few of the firehouses and police stations. And let me tell you, I'll jump right in there. And when it's time to you know, bust some heads and make some fun of each other, I'm right there with you guys. So I just want to thank you for, you know, keeping us safe back here, especially when I was overseas doing it over there. So my hat's off to all of you. And if there's anything that you need, I hope you don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, this is our shortfall, this is where we need help. Because when we talk about resiliency, you know, oftentimes we talk about being resilient, what you can do for yourself to keep moving forward. But we all know real resiliency takes a team, just like Robert said earlier. So again, thank you, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You really want to know what Michael does that keeps him ticking every day, go to robertirvinefoundation.org and see what we do. Here's a warning for you. Make sure you have some tissues or some toilet paper or something, because there's some videos on there of the lives that we change in the dogs, whether it be dogs, wheelchairs, events. It's pretty heartwarming. You know, every day I get out of bed and I fight because of people like you and people like Michael that keep us safe. So again, like Michael just said, I say thank you for allowing us to come out and chat. And we appreciate everything you do and your families, because we always forget about the families that stood behind what you do. Whether you're male or female firefighter, whether you work in the office, whether you work for the foundation, we appreciate what you do because it does make a difference. And I think when you go home and you've had a really bad day and you tell your husband or wife about that day, tell them that you love them, you care about them, and that they are a great support system. Because I think sometimes we get lost in that shift of so busy and so tied up in our own mind that we forget about the people that stand behind us. So thanks for having us, and have a great day.
And with that, I do have a couple of gifts for you. Thanks to our sponsor at Phoenix Helmets and CSFA, I made a custom helmet for Robert.
Cool.
By the way, I told you I failed being a firefighter, so now I can be one.
Now he can be one. And we also got you an official CSFA apron. I love that. I love that. Chef Irvine is going to stay with us for a little bit during the exhibitor hall that's going to open up right now at 4 o'clock with also reception and some appetizers as well.